Headed to SoFi Stadium? Skip the traffic and ride the Culver City Bus Line 99, the SoFi Express, your direct $2 base fare round-trip ride from the Culver City Transit Center at Westfield, Culver City. Buses run on weekend game days every 20 minutes starting 3 hours before kickoff, with return service beginning at the start of the third quarter. And guess what else? We're hiring. Join our team and help keep the community moving. Visit culvercitybus.com or call 310-253-6500 for info on your next ride to the game or maybe your next job.
Good afternoon. Getting right down to business here. We're doing it live, doing more at 4 weekday afternoons, right after Guy Benson and just before Randy Wang with the 790 KBC News Blitz at 5. Mottek On Money now, live on the air, 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com. Of course, the on-demand Mottek On Money podcast, kbc.com, Apple iTunes, YouTube, all your favorite podcast platforms. Mixed finish on this Fed Day today. A lot of news to cover here, folks. The Fed voted in favor of a quarter-point interest rate reduction of the short-term Fed funds rate, which impacts the prime lending rate charged by major banks to their best corporate customers. This was the move that was widely expected by the markets. The Dow did close higher today, while the S&P 500 and NASDAQ pulling back from record highs. All the major averages still near their all-time highs. The Fed chairman said today during his news conference following the announcement that the Fed decision was a risk management cut as the labor market has been deteriorating against a backdrop of elevated inflation. We'll have extended coverage on all of this coming up here, and we'll be watching what's happening with gold as well, pulling back on the Fed announcement. The bond market reacted with the yield on the 10-year note moving higher to 4.08%. Our extended coverage begins now with the one and only Daniel Ives, Managing Director and Global Head of Technology Research at Wedbush Securities. He's doing a lot of other things these days. So thank you very much, Daniel Ives, for taking the call here this afternoon.
Great to be on with you, Frank, on a big Fed day.
Most definitely. Give us your reaction to the latest news here and the market's reaction.
I mean, look, this is, you could argue the cut should have started last meeting. You're now cutting. You're probably going to have 3-4 cuts over the next, what I believe going to mid next year. That's bullish for tech stocks. I mean, I think that's going to put more fuel in the engine of this tech rally as you start to go to more dovish Fed.
Tell us about your trip to Washington yesterday. You were hanging out with some of the biggest names in the crypto world and meeting with lawmakers. Tell us about your visit there.
Yeah, Frank, we were with Senators, Toomer, Cruz, Blackburn, and a number of others, Tim Scott's office and other. Look, this is really, this is myself, Michael Sauer, Tom Lee, and then part of a digital initiative to push Bitcoin as a reserve in the U.S. I think it's something that we believe is extremely important, legitimizing Bitcoin and overall crypto. And it's something I think you're definitely seeing movement on Capitol Hill toward, the more and more adoption of what we're seeing with Bitcoin. I think this would be an important step. That's why we are on Capitol Hill.
All right. Tell us about WorldCoin and what you're doing at 8Go Holdings these days.
Yeah, I mean, look, chairman of 8Go, this is really AI meets crypto. I mean, WorldCoin I really view as a core authentication layer for human proof in an AI world. This is really going to be the crypto that I view as something that's going to play a major role in the intersection of AI and crypto. And at 8Go, obviously we're buying this. We continue to view this as just the start of what's really an AI revolution, but you cannot get there without human proof authentication.
All right. It sounds like you're a human, Dan, and you're a terrific human. Thank you very much for taking the call here. I know you got a split here now, so thank you very much for joining us live.
Thanks,
here.
Frank.
We continue our coverage here on this big day with a lot to cover here with the markets closing mixed. The Fed, as expected, decided to lower short-term interest rates by a 0.25 percentage point. They didn't go for the jumbo cut that some folks thought would happen. So here we are. Joining us live now is Gabriel Wisdom with American Money Management and author of Wisdom on Value Investing. Gabriel, thank you very much for taking the call here, and take it from the top. Give us your reaction to the market action today.
Frank, the most dangerous words in the English language, and this is an old Wall Street adage, the four words are, "This time it's different." because this time is never different. Previous rate-cutting cycles were in reaction to financial crises. There was no financial crisis. Currently, there are some indications that we have some problems, certainly, but in more normal times, if there's such a thing as normal, Fed cuts occur after prices have been falling, and the lower cost of funds increases demand, but we haven't had falling prices, so it's quite a bit different than before. But is it different? And the employment situation, we have got a dual mandate with the Federal Reserve: price stability and full employment. Well, price stability, we might argue, would occur with tapping the brakes, maybe keeping rates where they are. And the employment situation, unemployment is only 4.2%, the main problem being a shortage of labor. But we're seeing in the housing market a real slowdown there, and housing accounts for lots of employment, lots of labor. So the Fed is really pushing on a string here. Is this time different? I'm not sure. I can take you back to the 1970s, the dot-com bust, even 2008 and 2020, and there have been many missteps by the Federal Reserve. Let's hope this isn't one of them.
Right. The quote that's been highlighted today is that the Fed faces a challenging situation. That's certainly not different this time around. Secretary or Fed Chairman Powell, who, by the way, the president wants him to resign, addressed challenging issues here, challenging situation. Obviously, they're focused on jobs and inflation. But any other big takeaways from his speech? And might we expect 2 more rate cuts before the year's over?
Well, we might get them, Frank, if we see the housing market continue to stagnate. For example, Lennar, the big home builder, their average home price, net of incentives, is down almost 9% year over year because demand is low due to the high cost of mortgages. Now, mortgages did move, they budged a little, but long-term rates were firm. And that's the risk. This is exactly what happened, in prior situations where we had rising prices and the Fed decided to avoid a recession that might occur or slowdown that might occur and reduce the cost of money. So it's somewhat risky. It's anticipatory, and nobody really knows the future. I'd say just follow the data.
All right, as far as mortgage rates are concerned, they hit a new low for the year just in the last week or so, with that yield in the 10-year note dipping down to 4.03%. It's back up to 4.08% now. Interesting reaction to the Fed announcement. In advance of today's news, the market had rallied to record highs and benchmark bond yields had been slipping. What do you see ahead for the market here now?
Well, the market didn't react too well to the Fed cut, but I'd say the biggest concern would be that, and now we get a melt up in prices. Cheaper money means that you begin chasing some kind of yield. You don't get a return on your money. Now, a quarter of a point discount, in the old rate, it's not much, but it's something. I think that the central banks around the world are taking the spotlight this week because they're making new monetary policies, not just here in the United States, but the Bank of Canada, for example, today reduced their Fed funds rate, their equivalent, by 25 basis points, same as our Fed. The Bank of England is going to make a decision on interest rates tomorrow, the Bank of Japan on Friday, and that'll really reveal much about the degree to which the U.S. tariffs perhaps are disrupting economies. We'll see.
Yeah, that's the wild card, of course, as well, from a legal standpoint. Well, whether those tariffs will stand or whether the Treasury will have to refund about $1 trillion in tariff money that potentially has been taken in. So there are definitely some wild cards here. As far as inflation is concerned, what are your thoughts about the impact? We saw a slight uptick in the consumer price index recently, and signs that this tariff stuff is starting to filter through to Mr. and Mrs. Southern California. What are your thoughts on where inflation goes from here?
Well, it's a real issue, Frank. The last time tariffs were this high was over 110 years ago. And back then, of course, the average life expectancy was 50. There were 5 cars for every 1,000 people. I mean, it was a whole different time. So we're really in an experimental mode. I'm hoping the tariffs will work, but at the same time, we're seeing slowdowns as a result of tariffs, and some employers, big ones, are just holding off on expansion until this thing shakes out, and we'll see how it goes.
On there live with the top-ranked money manager Gabriel Wisdom with American Money Management, author of Wisdom on Value Investing. I know you keep an eye on the cryptos. We just had Dan Ives, the big guy nowadays on the tech scene. You heard what he had to say. Gabriel Wisdom, what are your thoughts on the latest crypto action here? We see a Bitcoin up around 116,000 here at the moment.
Well, we all follow Dan. He's a master, and he was early on Tesla and so many great plays, as you know. The resumed Federal Reserve easing cycle is very bullish for cryptos, from what I can tell. That the Fed begins to cut rates, it puts more pressure on the U.S. dollar, and money goes into crypto. And the other thing that's happening under the radar, and I've only realized this recently, is it isn't just retail investors that are buying the BlackRock crypto ETF or some other investment just to get a little piece of it. Sovereign wealth funds are plowing into various crypto investments. So it's not just people going in and saying, well, let's see what happens. This is long-term money that's quite bullish for crypto. The stable coins and the new legislation about stable coins, that might be a game changer, because these coins will create some stability in cryptocurrencies that make it very difficult to transact every day, to buy and sell because of the volatility. The stable coins mean stability.
Let me ask you about analog gold after hitting on digital gold here just now. We're going to be talking to Barry STUPPLER, familiar name on this program, about gold. We did see gold run up to record highs ahead of today's Fed decision to lower short-term interest rates by a 0.25 percentage point. The dollar has come under pressure lately. Silver has also seen an impressive run-up. It got above $43, but has now also pulled back a bit today. What are your thoughts on gold and silver here now?
Well, the demand for gold, Frank, continues at about twice the pace that we saw, in really the prior decade. And much of this is on account of China, but the central banks around the world. And then I read recently that recycled gold, because they're not making any new gold, but recycled gold, the supply of it is running at very low levels. And this means that there'll be some upside demand for gold, because you're not recycling enough of it. It just never goes away. So I'm very bullish on gold here. Same with silver. Silver prices are expected to rise significantly over the next few years, and I think it has everything to do with this new technology, the data centers, solar, et cetera. We need silver.
All right, turning to another big commodity, oil, which with once again things heating up in the Middle East, and we'll be talking to Middle East expert RAVIV coming up here later this hour. We see oil slowly ticking higher again, back into the mid-60s here. What are your thoughts on oil for the rest of the year?
Well, Frank, remember, in the 2007, 2008 period when the Fed had reduced rates as a reaction to the dot-com bust, the tech wreck in 2001. And that led to somewhat of a housing bubble, and oil prices hit $140 a barrel. Now they're down over 50%. So what's going on is we're seeing a long price retreat. Oil prices have been in a slow decline since the late 2023 highs near $100 a barrel. And a lot of it has to do with OPEC. Obviously, they're increasing supply, but the Saudis have ambitions to transition to renewable energy sources by 2030. In just 5 years, if they succeed, best guess is that oil demand continues to fall.
All right. Are you touching any of the oil names here? And, of course, I remember when oil became negative, down negative $40 a barrel during the pandemic, right, when the global economy was shut down. And then it's bounced back since then.
Yeah, I mean, they pay you to buy it. That was crazy. I mean, that's how the whole world goes mad from time to time. And not likely to occur again. But if it does, you want to have your head on a swivel and be ready. Yes, I like all the oil names. I like them especially because it's out of favor, and we need oil so desperately. It's going to take many, many years to transition to renewables. Even the Saudis are saying they're hoping to be at 50% by 2030. But they give that a very low probability. But it sounds good. It's good press.
Gabriel Wisdom, let me ask you the big question here now. Where are you putting money now in order on taking it off the table?
Frank, I'm looking at some of the infrastructure plays, and one that I like, but I haven't started to accumulate any, is the old AT&T, symbol T. The stock's trading at under $30, and you know that every call that you make, every text, every video stream, every data download that you do, that anybody does, it flows through this network infrastructure that AT&T built and maintains across America. So this is an amazing opportunity. If I'm right, I haven't finished the analysis and the research yet, but let's face it, in today's world, connectivity performance matters more than ever. So I'm looking at AT&T, symbol T. It has a dividend yield just under 4%.
Terrific. Gabriel Wisdom with American Money Management, Managing Director at American Money Management, co-founder there, and also author of Wisdom on Value Investing. Gabriel Wisdom, thank you very much for stepping up to the plate here on this big day where we finally got the Fed decision to lower rates for the first time in more than a year. Thank you very, very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
Thank you, Frank.
Out to the freeways now, 790 KABC. Mottek On Money continues, 790 KABC. Good afternoon. Mixed finish for the stock market today after the Federal Reserve did what was widely expected, cutting short-term interest rates by a 0.25 percentage point. That impacts personal as well as business loans, impacts the prime lending rate charged by major banks. So that's going down by a 0.25 percentage point. So we're getting a little break there. And also adjustable mortgages impacted by that. The yield in the 10-year note, which impacts the fixed-rate mortgage rates, ticked slightly higher to 4.08%. The Dow came in for a closing gain of 260 points at 46,018, just a whisker below its record high. The S&P 500, which hit record highs in the past couple of days, down 6, and the Nasdaq down 73. Fed Chairman Jerome Powell said during his news conference that today's Fed decision was a risk management cut as the labor market has been deteriorating against a backdrop of elevated inflation. In addition to the rate cut, the Fed policymakers also signaled 2 more rate cuts this year. The job market slowdown was expected to convince the Fed to pivot toward more rate cuts despite an uptick in inflation. Taking a look at Disney shares, moving higher today by 87 cents to $116.10. Nexstar shares closed up $2.97 at $205.92. After the closing bell, Walt Disney-owned ABC Television said it will indefinitely stop airing Jimmy Kimmel Live after remarks the late-night host made about Charlie Kirk's assassination came under harsh criticism from the head of the Federal Communications Commission. Earlier, Nexstar Media said it would stop airing the show on its 32 ABC affiliates, citing comments that Kimmel made. All of this following the FCC chair Brendan Carr urging local broadcasters to stop airing that TV show. Checking the cryptos now, we see a rally here this afternoon in the Bitcoin, up more than $1,000 at $116,730. Ethereum, ETH, as it's known, up 96, just shy of 4,600. Solana at 245, and Doge at the moment at 28 cents. And now the latest news on 790 KABC.
Headed to SoFi Stadium? Skip the traffic and ride the Culver City Bus Line 99, the SoFi Express, your direct $2 base fare round-trip ride from the Culver City Transit Center at Westfield, Culver City. Buses run on weekend game days every 20 minutes starting 3 hours before kickoff, with return service beginning at the start of the third quarter. And guess what else? We're hiring. Join our team and help keep the community moving. Visit culvercitybus.com or call 310-253-6500 for info on your next ride to the game or maybe your next job.
Bruin fans, fall is finally here. That means UCLA football is back in your life. Head out to the Rose Bowl to enjoy America's best tailgating and to make more unforgettable memories with the Bruins. Nico Iamaleava and the Bruins are ready to make an impact this year, and we need you cheering them at the Rose Bowl. Visit UCLABruins.com or call 310-UCLA-WIN to lock in your tickets today. 310-UCLA-WIN.
Actor Michael Rosenbaum, he knows some of the most talented people in the business, and now he's getting the inside story.
Talking with Josh Duhamel, did you ever suffer with anxiety?
I would put tremendous pressure on myself to deliver, because if I didn't know what else I was going to do.
David Tennant, if you could do Hamlet, nothing should make you nervous.
I was on the floor of my dressing room in the fetal position.
I've been there.
The Inside of You podcast.
I hope you enjoy the podcast. We talk about mental health and life and all that stuff. Thanks for being here.
Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Mottek On Money continues, 790 KABC. Things heating up again in the Middle East. See the Times of Israel, their banner headline, Israel at War, Day 713. This as the October 7th date approaches. That would be the second anniversary of the Hamas terror attack on Israel. That would mark 2 years since the start of the war. The Israeli military says it's opening an additional route for 48 hours that Palestinians could use to leave Gaza City as it steps up efforts to empty the city of civilians and confront thousands of Hamas combatants. Thousands of archaeological relics rescued in Gaza ahead of the IDF strike. Following all of these developments very, very closely, Middle East expert, former network news correspondent and author Dan RAVIV, author of numerous books on the Israeli intelligence service. His latest, Spies Against Armageddon. He previously wrote Every Spy a Prince. Dan RAVIV, thank you very, very much for joining us live here and give us the very latest news you have there.
Yeah, another big and important day, Frank. The Israelis had been saying for weeks that they intended to invade the biggest city in the Gaza Strip. About 700,000 people normally live in Gaza City. That's apparently about cut in half now as people were fleeing the Israeli invasion plan. And the Israelis have moved in with tanks and with obviously stepped-up airstrikes on a lot of buildings that they say that Hamas militants were using. In all, according to the Israelis, they expect that there are about 2,000 Hamas fighters still there in Gaza City, and the Israelis are sending in 20,000 troops. But, of course, America learned when it tried to do urban combat, I think of Iraq especially, it's really difficult. Block by block, they're going to face booby traps. They're going to face sniper fire. The Israelis know this will be difficult, but they claim this is the way to squeeze Hamas, to force Hamas to release the 48 hostages still being held.
On the live with Middle East expert Dan RAVIV. And Dan, is there any talk of Hamas surrendering at this point, given this tremendous pressure?
There is simply the hope. I heard it today even from the United States ambassador to Israel, the very pro-Israeli Mike Huckabee. He was speaking from Jerusalem at a conference in Washington by video link, and he was saying that this would all end if Hamas would surrender. But all the Middle East experts in the room then said Hamas is not the surrendering type. They almost enjoy death. They don't mind that their fellow Palestinians are dying because it strengthens the Hamas case around the world. It makes Israel more hated. It seems to have fanned the flames of anti-Semitism. It causes dissension and division inside Israel. So they say Hamas might even be enjoying this Israeli invasion. I know a lot of Hamas leaders have died, no question, in the Gaza Strip. And you'll recall that only a week ago, Israel took the step of bombing a building far away in Doha, Qatar, because that's where the Hamas political leaders were. A little bit embarrassing for the Israelis. that the political leaders actually survived that. 6 other people were killed. So I'm saying war is messy, and I don't have any sense from the Israelis that they think this will end soon. They just say they're willing to push, if necessary, for a couple more months to somehow compel Hamas to surrender and free the hostages.
And what do we know about the hostages at this point? What are your sources telling you? There were some reports that they're being taken out of the tunnels and moved above ground. What's the latest on the state of the hostages at this point?
Yeah, Israeli sources believe, based on their intelligence, that at least some of the 20 live hostages have been taken out of the tunnels under the buildings and instead put into the buildings, thinking in that way, the Israelis will know, and there'll be certain places that the Israelis won't be willing to bomb in order to avoid, injuring or killing the hostages, again, making it very messy, very difficult. And then to tease Israel, Hamas issued a video of one of the hostages being driven around in a car, and Hamas in the message said, you see, we're not only in the tunnels. So there's a lot of psychological warfare here. And Frank, keeping many things in mind, including anti-Israel statements, where you are in Los Angeles and all around the world, Hamas really wanted to make Israel unpopular. And even Israeli officials, Netanyahu, the prime minister this week, said, we're facing a lot of isolation, but we can take it. We need to win this war.
And even longtime allies of Israel, look at what's happening in the UK. The prime minister there, according to another report, planning to formally recognize a Palestinian state after President Trump completes his visit to the UK. What's your reaction to that report and the other global reaction we've seen to what's happening there in Gaza recently?
Yeah, it does look like the UK, Great Britain will do that. France certainly was one of the first major Western countries to say, we will recognize a Palestinian state. I think they should have made it a lot clearer. We'll recognize a Palestinian state in theory if it peacefully can be established without Hamas. I think everyone should recognize that Hamas is a bloody terrorist group, and if only these countries would say that we'll recognize a moderate Palestinian country. Now, don't get me wrong, most Israelis don't feel that way now. They are so angry at Palestinians over the October 7th massacres and kidnappings. But right now, the way France and Britain and Canada and Australia are all considering this recognition, by the way, the chief ally for Israel is the United States, and Netanyahu and Trump seem to be very closely coordinating. As a matter of fact, President Trump just invited Netanyahu to visit the White House for the 4th time this year after Netanyahu gives a speech at the UN General Assembly 2 weeks from now.
And it is to be noted that October 7, 2023 attack by Hamas on Israel resulted in the deaths of about 1,200 people, mostly Israelis, but from people from around the world who were caught up in that horrific attack. Another 251 were taken hostage, and as you noted, many are still being held hostage. Any hope that this will end by the second anniversary of this horrific attack?
No, I would say that's really too soon. That we hear some attempts to restart negotiations, and Qatar, despite that airstrike by Israel last week, Qatar says it's willing to mediate again, but I don't see anything like that happening really soon. And I'm willing to admit that as much as I told you that Israelis are super angry at the Palestinians over October 7th, by now, of course, Palestinians and the people of many Arab countries are super angry at Israel for the Gaza war, which, according to Hamas, has killed 65,000 people. Certainly it's tens of thousands, and perhaps half of them are terrorists, but still that's a lot of civilians who've been killed. I'm certainly in favor of ending the war, releasing the hostages, and moving on to a better future. But sorry, Frank, I don't see it happening soon.
And we see that the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, says President Trump will host him on September 29th as he issues a dire warning to Hamas over the hostages as the pressure intensifies. What about Iran in all of this? Looks like inspectors are going to be looking at their nuclear program again, or what's left of it, after Israel and the U.S. obliterated it in the attack that occurred a couple of months ago. What do we need to know about that front?
Yeah, what a good point, because that brief 12-day war was June 13th to 25th, so it's now been 3 months. And Iran is trying to, still claim that it is the victim. And so it's trying to, well, if possible, make friends. There have been diplomatic visits between Saudi Arabia and Iran, normally opponents of each other, of course. Iran has told the UN that weapons inspectors could come in to look at what remains of the nuclear program. And Israel says it doesn't trust Iran at all. And by the way, President Trump doesn't either. So I'm sure that the Mossad and the CIA are closely watching Iran to see if it dares to restart a nuclear weapons program.
In the meantime, Israel on high alert for any attacks. Have you heard about this laser-based Iron Beam interception system, which has been declared operational? They have the Iron Dome system, which I believe Germany is about to put into place and buy it from Israel. What do we need to know about these defense systems?
Yeah, Frank, first of all, on a business point of view, Israel is a major exporter of weapon systems when it develops them and creates them. And so Iron Dome is a good example. The new one is called Iron Beam. It's a laser equivalent of the Iron Dome. Its radar can lock in to the incoming aerial threats, drones, rockets coming in from Gaza or Lebanon, and each shoot-down might cost $5 worth of electricity, and it works. It's about to be deployed by Israel. They're not putting it on the world market yet. $5 of electricity, whereas Iron Dome fires an interceptor missile, each shot costs $60,000. One thing, though, I did speak to some of the developers of Iron Dome, which went into action, by the way, 14 years ago, and they say, hey, Iron Beam is good and it's cheap to run, but if it's a very rainy or cloudy day, we might not be able to depend on it. So, of course, they're not giving up Iron Dome.
Isn't that something? Well, things have advanced tremendously since Patriot missiles were used to shoot down those Scud missiles that hit Israel or tried to hit Israel during the time Israel was attacked by Iraq back in those days, which you covered so very, very well for the network. Dan, I wish we had more time, but look forward to our next conversation as we follow this with you very, very closely. That is Middle East expert Dan RAVIV, also on the podcast, The Mossad Files, author of numerous books and on the Middle East and former network news correspondent. Dan, thank you very, very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
Always a pleasure, Frank.
Thank you very much. And his latest book, by the way, is Spies Against Armageddon. Previously, he wrote Every Spy a Prince. Out to the freeways now, 790 KBC.
Headed to SoFi Stadium? Skip the traffic and ride the Culver City Bus Line 99, the SoFi Express, your direct $2 base fare round-trip ride from the Culver City Transit Center at Westfield, Culver City. Buses run on weekend game days every 20 minutes starting 3 hours before kickoff, with return service beginning at the start of the third quarter. And guess what else? We're hiring. Join our team and help keep the community moving. Visit culvercitybus.com or call 310-253-6500 for info on your next ride to the game or maybe your next job.
Hey, Bruin fans, want to go behind the scenes with your favorite teams and athletes? How about getting exclusive merch and opportunities to enter sweepstakes like sideline access at the Rose Bowl? Introducing Blue and Gold Society, UCLA Athletics fan membership program created to support Bruin student athletes. Members receive benefits like exclusive gear, videos featuring insider stories, and incredible experiences courtesy of UCLA Athletics. Sign up today at blueandgoldsociety.com.
Ever wonder how dark the world can really get?
Well, we dive into the twisted, the terrifying, and the true stories behind some of the world's most chilling crimes.
Hi, I'm Ben.
And I'm Nicole.
Together, we host Wicked and Grim, a true crime podcast that unpacks real-life horrors one case at a time.
With deep research, dark storytelling, and the occasional drink to take the edge off,
we're here to explore the wicked
and reveal the grim. We are Wicked and Grim.
Follow and listen on your favorite podcast platform.
Mottek On Money continues, 790 KABC. Good afternoon. We've seen gold hit record highs this week in advance of the Federal Reserve's decision to cut interest rates. That did happen today by a 0.25 percentage point. The stock market ended the day mixed. Gold also pulled back, but in advance of today's big announcement in which the Fed decided to cut rates by a 0.25 percentage point, we did see the market hit record highs, gold hitting record highs, and silver also popped above $43 an ounce, the highest it's been in more than a decade. Joining us live now, the gold expert here, Barry Stuppler, founder of Stuppler & Company and Mint State Gold in Woodland Hills. Barry Stuppler, also former president of the American Numismatic Association, a rare coin expert extraordinaire. Barry Stuppler, thank you very much for taking the call. And every time you come to the line, we've been hearing about record high gold prices. Give us your reaction to the latest action here this week.
Well, the Federal Reserve meeting was anticipated, and the feeling was they cut it 0.25%, the Fed funds rate, but then there was speculation they may cut it as much as 0.5%. So what happened was after the announcement, gold rallied $20, reached an all-time high of $37.08, which is right now the all-time high gold has reached. Then we saw profit-taking and short selling. A lot of people who have been waiting for the announcement to sell their gold, and traders who obviously short and go long silver gold contracts also took action. Then we saw gold drop from $37.08 to $36.44. This was like a $60 drop. Wow. I've never seen that much. Well, I have seen similar, but it's very rare to see it drop that much. At around $36.44, right when it got below the $36.50 support level for gold, gold rallied back and closed up above right around $36.60. But all the fundamentals are still in place. The demand for gold continues to grow worldwide. The dollar is at a new 14-year low, which is obviously helping the gold price. So we're seeing a lot of strength in the gold market in terms of demand. The amount of selling that hit the market today after it hit its high was tremendous, but there were buyers, and it was all purchased between $36.44 up to $36.60 on the close. So there's good demand, and I think gold will probably stabilize here after this volatility above $36.50 and then go back and hit $3,700 probably early sometime next week. But I'm anticipating gold to reach $3,800 sometime by October. And again, like I've said numerous times, $4,000 by the end of the year. The buying is there. The demand is there. The geopolitical situations continue to get worse. And all the issue about tariffs, and so it obviously just drives more people to buy gold and hold less dollars. So I'm still very optimistic even after this $60 drop during trading today.
Are you hearing from bargain hunters after this? And the Fed signaled 2 more rate cuts, by the way, on top of the tariff uncertainty and also, of course, the geopolitical uncertainty in the Middle East and Russia, Ukraine, China, and the list goes on.
Well, you're right. The Fed governors, 9 of them projected 2 or more cuts this year, which is the majority of them, which will obviously help the fundamentals for owning gold. Another drop in interest rates in October, one in December. That's going to stimulate gold. That's why I'm staying with my $4,000 prediction by year end. But other you like talking about other things. Silver was even more volatile today. It was, like you said, it was over 43. Then it got down to as low as 41.14 when gold hit its low, and then it rallied back up. And right now it's trading around 41.45, but 31.75 is where it's currently trading. It should get back above 42 relatively soon, and then stay in that general range in the 42s until we see gold, another breakout in gold, which, like I said, probably happen by the end of the month. But it's just a lot of activity right now in precious metals. Platinum, palladium, they got hit and they came back a little bit, but there's very little trading activity in physical platinum and palladium. It's all primarily in gold and silver right now.
Very interesting. Silver hitting, I believe, a 14-year high. So when you said the dollar's at a 14-year low, coincidentally, silver at a 14-year high, right? So where do you see silver go from here?
I think silver, when gold gets to $4,000 by the end of the year, I think silver will be well over 45 on its way to 50. The buying interest in silver has just really picked up dramatically. A lot of people who are invested in gold, I'm seeing a lot of our clients who have had gold for years is diversifying a little bit, selling some of the gold, picking up silver to be more diversified. And that's happening not just domestically, but it's happening worldwide. We're seeing a lot more demand for silver in India, in China, and definitely in the European countries. So I see silver probably at least over 45 or so by the end of the year, and possibly 50, depending upon how much buying comes in.
Very interesting. And, of course, you also specialize in rare coins. Any guidance on folks who want to invest in rare coins and those that have the potential to appreciate it as far as numismatic value is concerned based on their collectability?
Yeah, I just, in the weekly market report, which I publish every Monday, it's on our website, Mint State Gold. Just go to Investor Education. I go into a lot of detail on what's happening in the rare coin market in terms of the different types of coins. Rarities, which are coins that a lot of people like, which are coins that are typically priced at $25,000 and above, those are hitting record highs. Most of the other coins that are collector coins or investment coins that are under that price range, they're trading actively, and there's some really good bargains there because a lot of individuals are focusing more on the bullion than on the rarity of the coin. So we're seeing a lot of activity in that level. I'm filling out collections, helping people with their Morgan dollar collection or their St. Gaudens $20 gold collection, and we're seeing a lot of activity there, which is nice because the value is there now. They're not trading at the collector coins, which are under those $25,000 range, are trading more closer to their gold content than they have in years. So they're a great value.
Very interesting. And, of course, here in Southern California, I was talking to some people that were interested in Iranian gold coins, the old Persian coins. Is there interest in that sort of product, for example?
The Pahlavis, yeah, the 5 Pahlavi, the 10 Pahlavi, that's a coin that is mostly valued, unless it's high grade, it's mostly valued at the gold content. So those trade actively, but it's closer to the gold price than it is at any collector premium.
Something for everyone. Barry, you're getting calls already, so thank you very much for joining us live here this afternoon. That is Barry Stuppler, who is founder of Stuppler & Company in Mint State Gold in Woodland Hills. Barry Stuppler, also the former president of the American Numismatic Association, live with us here on Mottek On Money on 790 KABC. Mixed finish for the stock market today with all eyes on the Federal Reserve at 11 o'clock this morning. They made the big announcement, a quarter-point drop in the Fed funds rate, which is the benchmark Fed funds rate, which impacts borrowing costs, short-term borrowing costs, and that impacts the prime lending rate, which is now down to 7.25%. Stocks closed mixed today after the Fed cut rates for the first time this year. The Dow coming in for a closing gain today. Let's bring up the closing quotes here once again. We did see a mixed finish here today with the Dow Jones Industrial Average up 260 points at the bell. The S&P 500 down 6, and the NASDAQ Composite closed down 73. And the yield on the 10-year note went up today to 4.08%. Stay tuned now for the 790 KABC News Blitz with Randy Wang, and I'll be back with more at 4 tomorrow afternoon on 790 KABC.
Headed to SoFi Stadium? Skip the traffic and ride the Culver City Bus Line 99, the SoFi Express, your direct $2 base fare round-trip ride from the Culver City Transit Center at Westfield, Culver City. Buses run on weekend game days every 20 minutes starting 3 hours before kickoff, with return service beginning at the start of the third quarter. And guess what else? We're hiring. Join our team and help keep the community moving. Visit culvercitybus.com or call 310-253-6500 for info on your next ride to the game or maybe your next job.